Billions of humans have existed before us and exist at the same time as us. Every emotion, thought, problem, existential crisis, etc., we experience has already been lived by someone else. Many of those someones have written books about their experiences and have been doing so for centuries. There's a wealth of information building on top of each other throughout history. Yet modern people still try to reinvent the wheel. Reading a few autobiographies would do people some wonders to improve their mental health, maturity, problem solving skills, etc. But they prefer to watch generic self help YouTube videos instead. The solutions to most people's problems are right in front of them. If they tried looking for the answers, read a book, or at least Google the problem. Absolutely agree. Perfectly said. I love the idea of you're not special, your problems are not unique. Do you really think the things you're struggling with, you are the first person to deal with them? Do you really think that your problems are so great, that you are so uniquely constructed, that your issues are unsolvable? Absolute BS. Absolute BS. There's someone who's gone through the exact same experience as you. Maybe not exact same detail for detail, but similar enough that you can learn from them and you can solve your problems through the wisdom that they've gained through their experience. And there's actually a form of therapy called bibliotherapy, which uses books as your primary tool. And there's actually a meta-analysis study done this as well. I know I reference a lot of meta-analysis studies, but in psychology and self-improvement, they're probably the go-to standard. But there's a meta-analysis study that was done that research that found that mild to moderate depression, when bibliotherapy was applied to people that have that, it had an efficacy rate of 70%. 70%. That is better statistically in most cases to actual therapy, face-to-face therapy. So what does that mean? It means that for most people, because most people are mildly to moderately depressed, not everyone's extremely depressed, for most people, reading a couple of books could help you. It has a 70% efficacy rate. Now, they didn't say which kind of books it is. And I think there's different ways of dealing with a problem. There's solving the problem, there's coping with the problem. And maybe some people read books to cope with the problem. So an example of that is fantasy. Fantasy and fiction are what you would consider, I'm forgetting the word now, but it's basically distracting yourself. Same thing as Netflix, same thing as alcohol. Man, there's a term for it, and now it's escaping me and it's bothering me. Escapism. It's a form of escapism where you escape the problem by not thinking about it. That's also true, and that's probably contributing to that. Some people just need a distraction because their mind becomes an endless spiral. But in that list of bibliotherapy, there's also probably people reading self-help books, autobiographies, people overcoming stories. I'm pretty sure a lot of people today can relate to David Goggins' story, and maybe they read his book and that helps them, and it probably does in 70% of the cases. There can also be spiritual and religious texts, like I think the Bible, the Quran, other books like this. They help people deal with the problems, and they give a perspective and makes people's problems feel lesser. So if you're feeling down, go find some book that speaks to what you're struggling with. And I think the best way of doing this is journal your feelings. Especially when you're feeling bad, journal your feelings, write them down. Try and find a connecting thread between your feelings. I did this last year, and the big connecting thread for me was confidence issues. Not feeling confident in myself. I wanted more confidence in my friendships. I wanted more confidence in my romantic pursuits. I wanted more confidence in my work and all of these things above. I wanted more confidence. That was the connecting thread amongst all my problems. And I sat down and journaled, and that's how I realized it. And then once you sit down and journal and you find a common thread between your problems, find people that are known for dealing with those problems. I found Coach K. I found Chris Williamson. And I found Charlie Herbert, I think is his name, Charisma on Command. And go see what they've said. Read their books, watch their videos, consume their content so that you can get an idea of where you need to go to improve the feelings you're doubting yourself on. So that'd be my recommendation. Journal, find the underlying thread, find people that are experts on that thread and see what they think. I call that DIY philosophy. So go do that and see what resolutions you can come to from this research that can help you deal with your problems. long-term consistency matters more than short-term intensity. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Um, I think most people recognize that. Maybe most people don't actualize it, but a lot of people realize that. Um, but I also do want to mention something because I have this mentality of competence breeds confidence, not confidence breeds competence. And what that means is you have to get things right first before you get confidence in doing them, right? Like I can't be confident in my golf swing where I've never played golf before. And there was some studies done by this guy named Albert Bandura. And he does a lot of studies on self-efficacy. And he does study that try to find the predictors for what's a predictor for if you're going to stay with a new habit or hobby or whatever. And he found that the most important predictor, the number one predictor of whether or not you're going to stick with a habit or hobby or not, is called mastery experiences. So that's intense, successful moments. That's the number one predictor of whether or not you're going to stick with something. And it goes counterintuitive to what people think, because people think that I've made it in this field because I've worked hard and I had more grit and determination than other people. True to some extent, but you also probably got some luck on it. I think the best example is any survey you do at a gym is biased because you're surveying people at a gym. You're selecting for people that were naturally good at what the gym would provide. If you started exercising and let's say you did a bench press, and your first couple months you get to 60 kgs on a bench press, you're more likely to stick with it. Just because 60 kgs is a rare achievement, a lot of people can't hit 60 kgs, especially on the first few weeks or first few months of lifting. So you had some sense of mastery experience now where for your skill level relative to where you started, you were better than other people in it. And then you kept going to the gym. The guy who goes to the gym and for 5 months can't get more than 40 kgs on the bench press, he's likely not going to stick with it because he hasn't had any sense of, this is for me. Same thing with running. If you run and your first few runs, you get a sub 6 minute kilometer, you're more likely to stick with it than the guy that's saying a 7:30 kilometer every single time. So there is some sense of if you get small wins in the beginning, it's a lot easier to stick with it long term. That doesn't mean you shouldn't stick with things just because it's not coming to you naturally, but I think it's going to be a lot easier if you find things that you're truly made for, things that come naturally to you. You're going to stick to those much better. So, like the piece of advice I'll give on there is try to find small wins to give you the motivation to keep with that long-term intensity. So find the short-term intensity things that lead to long-term intensity things. So for example, if you're trying to lose weight and the first week you lose 2 kgs, that's going to propel you forward. You're going to be like, this is working, it's going to keep going. And that'll keep you going through the moments of doubt. So I think set yourself up for small wins in whatever task you're doing. For me, on the confidence one, it would be I would go talk to random people at the gym, people I didn't know. And if I got a smile out of them, I'm like, okay, that was a win. And I let that okay, I got 2 smiles today, 3 smiles today. And then that kept going. And now I have a lot more confidence. Still working on it, still not great. But the small wins are enough to propel me forward and keep me going on it. So I do agree, long-term consistency is super important, but don't underestimate the value of short-term wins. The less self-help content you consume, the more content you'll be in the process. The less self-help content you consume, the more content you'll be in the process of self-helping. Hard agree. And I'm going to try and coin a new phrase here. The man who reads 50 books is smart. The man who acts on 5 books is wise. And I think there's an element of a phrase I heard from Mark Manson that I love, where he said, procrastination is learning is the procrastination of the intelligent man. It's a very deadly habit to fall into because learning feels very productive. Learning feels like you're making progress. But there's a difference between learning something in the sense of you are aware of it and acting on something. There's a study called the Active Learning Impact Study done in 2024, where I found that passive learners, so passive readers, watchers, consumers, they only retain about 10 to 20% of information after 1 week, while active learners, people that practice and implement the things they learn, show 93.5% retention. That's about like a 4.5x multiplier of more efficacy. So what that means is you need to focus less on learning as much as possible and acting on as much as possible. So I like to say I don't jump from self-help book to self-help book to self-help book. I'll maybe read 3 self-help books in a year, and I'll read about 5 or 6 fiction books in a year. For the reason that I don't want to go to the next self-help book until I feel like I've properly implemented the lessons from the first self-help book. Otherwise, I've learned nothing. So I agree. If you consume less content on self-help, you're more likely to actually act upon the things that you do learn. And that goes to intent. You have to be intent on actually implementing these things, because you can learn everything and not do anything about it. There's a similar vein of, if you try to solve too many problems at once, you're going to end up solving no problems. And then what have you learned? So I definitely agree with this. I think that people should more actively apply the things that they're consuming before going on to the next one. So maybe like after you finish a book, after you finish a video, write 4 or 5 goals that you've gotten from this video. Keep it small, very small, and act upon those. So right now I'm reading Atomic Habits, and I'm not going on from Atomic Habits until I've implemented the lessons from there. And Atomic Habits has 4 big lessons to my knowledge. Make it obvious, make it easy, make it attractive, make it rewarding. I'm on make it obvious. And I'm not going to consume more until I've mastered the art of making it obvious. And I've started with a few things. So I've listed small hobbies that I'm going to make obvious. And then I'm going to master those hobbies, or habits rather. And then when I learn the second lesson, I'm going to make a new list of habits that I want to start based on that lesson. And that's active learning. And that way you retain a lot more of what you learn, and you actually apply the things that you're learning. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that clip from the interview of Agu. If you want to come onto the podcast, remember, all are welcome. Just fill in the form in the description and we'll see if we can have you on. If you want to watch the full podcast, click on the link here. If you want to watch anything else from the channel, click on the link here. Thanks for watching, guys.